on the first day of the first month. That makes sense, right? So if that's the New Year for kings, to relate to us today, what would be the new year for presidents? No? January 20th, right? So imagine if our Constitution said the 20th day of the first month is a new year for presidents. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Okay. Now, the first of Elul is a new year for the tithing of cattle. We don't need to worry about that. But that means, so what would be our new year? Oh no, that doesn't work, because taxes, we pay taxes on the 20th, but it's still through December 31st, isn't it? But if you're a company, if you're a business, right? If you're a business, when is the new year for finances? The fiscal year, which usually is, isn't it July 1 to July to June 30? Right? So the fiscal year doesn't go from January 1st to December 31st. The fiscal year goes from, see, this makes perfect sense. Right? So the cattle year, right, for our ancient Israelites, the cattle year went from the 1st of Elul to the end of Av. Makes perfect sense. Okay. The 1st of Tishrei is a new year for years. So what that means is that the first day of the 7th month is when we start counting new years. I know it makes absolutely no sense, right? But that means that right now the year is 5771, and on the first day of Tishrei, which biblically is the 7th month, it will become 5772. Okay? Like, it's not important for you to know it all. Keep track of how many times I say this is not important for you to know. But it explains, at least for the rabbis, how the new year could be the first day of the 7th month. It was just one of 4 new years. It just so happened that that was the new year where we switched the number for the year. Yeah?
So the Jewish year is still 365 days long.
We're going to get there next.
I didn't get a yes.
We're going to get there.
Okay.
Okay? All right. And then the other new year is the new year for trees and plants. That is a holiday we still observe today. It's Tu B'Shvat. Don't put a star by it because it's not a biblical holiday. Okay. Whew. Should I ask for questions or no? All right, let's wait till the end. Now, is the Hebrew calendar a 365-day year? Not exactly. Not exactly. The Hebrew calendar is based on the... Yes, but based on the moon, okay? In a lunar month, we have how many days? A lunar month. It's like 29 and a half. Okay? So the lunar month is 29 and a half days, which means that each of the Hebrew months is either going to be 29 or 30 days. Okay? Now, if we have 12 months that are between 29 and 30 days, we have approximately how many days? 350. I think it's 354. 354? Yeah, that sounds right. All right? So 354 days in the year based on the lunar calendar. Okay, because a year isn't based on a lunar calendar. A year, as we know, is based on a solar calendar, and a solar year is how many days? 365 and a quarter. Okay. Now, this is where, and I think I quote myself on one of the pages. I was in a test in rabbinical school, and I wrote a sentence, and I started laughing because it was really good. The Hebrew calendar is not solely lunar, S-O-L-E-L-Y. It can't be. But rather, matter, it's lunisolar. L-U-N-I-S. Where did I write it? Yeah. Oh, there it is. I even quoted myself. Okay. Right? It can't be solely lunar. Because if you have a 354-day year, it's the same reason that we have leap years in the Gregorian calendar. Eventually, what's going to happen? We have 354 days. So if a holiday was on what we know of as, well, Passover. Okay? So Passover, let's say it was on March 3rd. Okay? The next year, 354 days, so it's 11 days earlier, right? It's on February something, right? Then the next year it's earlier in February. The next year it's probably in January. Pretty soon Passover is in December. And this is where it becomes a problem. It's a problem for a lot of reasons. But biblically, the Torah tells us that Passover is in the spring. So, if we keep going earlier and earlier and earlier, pretty soon Passover is in the winter, then it's in the fall, then it's in the summer, and sure, it comes back to spring eventually, but that doesn't work for us. Okay? So it would happen in the Gregorian calendar if we didn't have a leap year also. It would just take a lot longer. Right? Because we lose, or we gain, I'm not going to, you all understand. So what happens in the Hebrew calendar, and again, this is something that I would say 97% of Jews don't really get. Right? All that most Jews get is, wow, the holidays come early this year, or wow, the holidays come late this year. Right? Well, the holidays always come at the same time, but the date, they're always on the same Hebrew date, but it changes with the Gregorian calendar. What happens is the holidays move earlier and earlier, and then when they're getting too early, just like we have a leap year in the Gregorian calendar, we have a leap year in the Hebrew calendar. But we don't add an extra day, we add an extra month. Okay? And if you look on the back of the first page, okay, oh, look at this, I explained just about everything. All the way at the bottom, the third from the bottom bullet, in a cycle of 19 years, every 3rd, 6th, 8th, 11th, 14th, 16th, and 19th year is a leap year. For the leap year, we add an extra month of Adar, which if you look on your front page is right in the middle. So we have what's called Adar 1 and Adar 2. All of the holidays occur in the second Adar. Okay? It didn't always work that way. Is that 19-year cycle in the Torah? No. Is that 19-year cycle even in the Talmud? No. You didn't know that. What would happen was, when the holidays would get too early, the rabbis, the Beit Din, the rabbinic court, would declare it's time for a leap year. And they would, it would be passed throughout the towns and villages, and word would spread, and they would note that this year we're adding an extra month. Okay? So that's where we get the luni-solar calendar. The months are based on the lunar system, right? The months begin with a new moon, and they end with a new moon. But we have to end up with a year that is consistent with the solar year. Does that make sense? Yes. Beautiful. Does everyone understand why Jewish holidays move with the Gregorian calendar, but don't move too much? And if you look on the calendar that I gave you, for each Hebrew month, you'll see the Gregorian months in which they can occur. Okay? Now there are many more rules, some of which I've written, some of which I haven't. Oh look, I have. I thought I was going to go over. Now, Michael said, when I asked how many days is Passover, and we all know the Torah said 7. Michael said 8. And the reason Michael said 8 is because, especially in ancient times, there was doubt. Go easy on it. It was a good question. It wasn't, well, it would have been a good question. But anyway, there's doubt with all of these times. And the way that times were announced, remember how I said the court would just decide, okay, we're going to have an extra month? Right? Well, how long does it take for word to get out to all the people? Right? You can't just send a Twitter, a tweet, right? You can't just put an alert on CNN, right? You can't even put it in the newspaper. Like we didn't, all these things that we take for granted. The shofar, the ram's horn, was an ancient sign of communication. That was how we knew that holidays were starting. That was how we knew that battles were, that attacks were coming, right? That was our early national alert system. But it takes time. And the rabbis also understood that the further away you were, the longer it took. So in conservative and Orthodox Judaism, all of the holidays, except for Yom Kippur, are observed with an extra day. Not in Israel. Okay? Only outside of Israel. So, a conservative and Orthodox Jew living in Israel is going to observe 7 days of Passover, 1 day of Shavuot, 7 days of Sukkot, plus that 8th day, right? Everything just, not just like we read it, but time-wise, just like we read it in Leviticus 23. But outside of Israel, in what we call the diaspora, or the Hebrew word is the galut, they're going to add an extra day. Early on in the Reform movement, right, our early Reform rabbis said that in modern times, this is not necessary anymore. And two reasons. One, we know the calendar, we know what day it is, we're not observing it at the wrong time. And two, there's no hierarchical difference between those of us living outside of Israel and those living in Israel, right? Because what it does is it says that there's something wrong with living outside of Israel. And in Reformed theology, that's not the case. There's nothing wrong with Israel. We love Israel. Early on, there might have been something wrong with Israel in Reformed ideology. We'll get there too. But in modern Reformed Judaism, we love Israel. We encourage and support those who want to live in Israel. But we also, like Rabbi said, I think Rabbi said, this is our temple, right? This is our temple with a capital T, and we like it that way. So there's nothing less about us being in Florida than anyone in Israel. So on your calendar, just to make it confusing, I've given you the holidays where conservative and Orthodox will tack on another day outside of Israel. Because, right, for those of you living in America, this is a reality. We're going to have our 7th day Yom Tov service for the end of Passover. And Rodef Sholom on Bayshore is going to have their 8th day service the next day. They're going to have the 7th day service also, right? They're going to have 1st day and 2nd day of the festival as a Yom Tov. 7th day and 8th day as a Yom Tov. We're going to have 1st day and 7th day, right? Shavuot, they're going to have services on the 1st day and what they call the 2nd day, the day after. We're going to have services on the 1st day and only observe it as a one-day holiday, right? That's what we're given in the Torah. That's how it's observed in Israel, and that's how we observe it here. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, beautiful. Yes?
You mentioned a year 5,200
Okay.
Where does the calendar start?
So, the year right now is 5771. It's a rabbinic calculation, I think it's rabbinic, based on biblically where we would have the creation of the world. Okay? It doesn't really work. Okay? But if you follow all the years